Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a journey that's going to completely reshape how you view world history. For a very long time, there's been this persistent, kind of stubborn myth of an isolated pre-colonial Africa. This idea of a continent just totally cut off from the great global exchanges of ideas and commerce. But here's the thing. One of the most powerful, globally connected empires of the 16th century was hiding right in plain sight, right in the heart of the African continent. So let's dismantle that myth today by looking at the absolutely incredible Kanem-Bornu Empire.
Okay, let's dive into this. Was West Africa historically isolated? It's a really common historical preconception, right? But the reality is absolutely staggering. Long before European ships ever mapped its coastlines, the African continent was this bustling, vibrant hub of international trade, high-stakes diplomacy, and deep scholarship. And to truly wrap our heads around this, we actually need to completely shift where we place the center of the map.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between these two historical perspectives. The traditional diffusionist view kind of places Africa on the periphery, just assuming it was merely receiving culture, religion, and systems from the outside world. But the actual historical evidence points us right to the Bornu-centric view. Back in the 16th century, the scholars and rulers of the Bornu Empire firmly positioned themselves as the absolute center of their own environment. From their capital, all roads, the entire world, radiated outward. They weren't on the edge of the world. Literally, they were the center of it. Section 1. Center of the world. The intellectual hub of Kanem-Bornu. A really fantastic example of this intellectual output is Barnawi. Created in Bornu between the 11th and 13th centuries, this is a highly unique form of Islamic calligraphy characterized by these heavy, bold, angular strokes. Imagine creating a design style so influential that it spreads like wildfire across continents. It wasn't imported. This was a homegrown African innovation that was then exported across North and West Africa. It proves definitively that the Kanem-Bornu Empire was a massive creator and exporter of high culture and sophisticated scholarship, not just some passive receiver. The Sefuwa Dynasty of Kanem-Bornu actually built an immense intellectual diaspora. Their rulers actively integrated these brilliant scholars right into the state apparatus as judges, ministers, and top advisors. Their capital city in Gazargamu transformed into this massive, bustling center of Islamic education. And what's wild is that royal patronage actually funded infrastructure as far away as Cairo and Mecca just to house Bornu pilgrims and students. Through these incredible diasporic networks, Bornu's cultural influence spread all the way from Egypt down to the houselands. They were literally funding an African-centered educational network spanning thousands of miles. Section 2. The Golden Desert Highway. The trans-Saharan economy.
Let's move to and see how this builds. For the longest time, the Sahara Desert was basically an impenetrable 1,000-mile barrier. But around 500 BCE, the Persian conquest of Egypt introduced the ultimate ancient all-terrain vehicle to Africa: the camel. By the Roman era, the camel was fully adopted for North African travel. And then, between the 8th and 16th centuries, right during the Islamic Golden Age of trade, this absolute beast of burden truly transformed that harsh desert into a bustling, incredibly lucrative highway that directly connected the Mediterranean to the heart of Africa.
Now, this highway operated on a really fascinating barter system, driven by extreme resource scarcity. In the Sahel region down south, resources like gold, enslaved people, and ivory were abundant, but they desperately needed salt, horses, and manufactured goods. Conversely, up in North Africa and the Sahara, they had plenty of salt and horses, but they craved gold. This fundamental imbalance created the famous gold for salt trade. It was literally the economic engine that fueled the wealth of the entire Mediterranean world for centuries. So you might be wondering, why salt? Well, salt was so incredibly scarce in the Sahel that it was traded practically ounce for gold. In the blazing African heat, salt isn't just a seasoning. It's absolutely essential for human survival. This turned desert oases, like the famous oasis of Bilma, which had massive salt deposits, into highly contested economic prizes. For the Kanem-Bornu Empire, controlling these vital desert oases meant controlling the flow of unparalleled wealth. Section 3. A geopolitical chessboard. Bornu on the global stage. We can really ground this geopolitical maneuvering in a remarkable human journey. In the 1570s, the mighty Ottoman Empire was advancing into Bornu's territories in the Fezzan region of southern Libya. In response, a Bornu scholar named El-Hajj Youssef made a massive 4,000-kilometer trek all the way to Istanbul in 1574. Just think about that journey for a second. He and his embassies sat down and negotiated directly with the Ottoman Sultan Murad III for 4 long years, and it actually worked. In 1578, the Ottomans sent a return embassy back to the Borno capital, officially opening diplomatic channels between two absolute superpowers.
And this brilliantly illustrates the supreme confidence of the Kanem-Bornu Empire. You can hear it in the words of a 16th century Bornu chronicler, Ahmad ibn Fortu, who wrote of this exact exchange. "Did you ever see a king equal to our sultan or close to him? Alas, in truth, all sultans are inferior to the Bornu sultan." I mean, wow. They weren't intimidated by the Ottomans one bit. In their eyes, they were the center of the world, engaging with a lesser, distant power.
Just look at how they recorded royal titles in their official chronicles to really drive this point home. The Bornu ruler is referred to as caliph, asserting absolute political and religious superiority. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Sultan, who was literally one of the most feared rulers in Europe and Asia at the time, is diminished to a malik, which translates to a mere king. The royal court of Bornu viewed themselves completely eye to eye with, and arguably vastly superior to, the mighty Ottoman Empire.
Section 4, the economics of warfare. The harsh realities of trans-Saharan trade.
15 to 20. That is the staggering number of enslaved human beings traded to North African merchants in exchange for just a single warhorse. It's a harsh reality, but slavery was the dark currency of desert warfare, used to fund the empire's insatiable need for military supremacy. This specific trade utterly transformed the region. The Ottomans provided Bornu with advanced firearms and European slave soldiers. The Bornu king, Mai Idris Alooma, ruthlessly utilized these new weapons to pacify rebellious regions and expand his borders. He maintained this massive, terrifying cavalry of over 3,000 North African warhorses, and to fund this immense military dominance, enslaved human beings served as the primary currency exported north. It was this relentless cycle of warfare, enslavement, and arms dealing that cemented Kanem-Bornu as the absolute superpower of the Lake Chad region.
Section 5, shifting the global tides. The disruption of the desert network. So, the crucial point is, everything changed with a massive disruption from the sea. In the 1450s, Portuguese explorers began arriving on the West African coast. By the 16th century, European Atlantic trade started diverting gold and other vital resources directly to the ocean, completely bypassing the desert. And by the late 16th century, the Islamic world's ancient monopoly on African trade was completely broken. This wasn't just a loss for sub-Saharan Africa. It caused a massive, sweeping economic decline up in North Africa as well.
As we've seen time and time again, the changing of trade routes dictates the rise and fall of vast empires. The diversion of trade to the Atlantic Ocean triggered the slow, agonizing collapse of the whole trans-Saharan system. Without that steady flow of gold coming up from the south, North Africa became economically vulnerable, ultimately paving the way for full Ottoman conquest of the Mediterranean coast. That golden highway basically turned right back into barren sand.
It leaves us with a pretty profound question to consider, doesn't it? If a single shift in oceanic trade routes could slowly unravel a 4,000-kilometer desert network and topple centuries-old empires, what shifts are reshaping our world today? Modern global networks might feel permanent to us, but history shows us they are incredibly fragile. Thank you so much for joining me in this Explainers, and remember to always keep questioning the center of your map.